全球的经济和手机行业现在极其不乐观，公司的整个营收远达不到预期，芯片这样一个巨大的投资将是公司承担不起的。所以我在这里边非常遗憾的要做一个宣布，经过审慎的讨论，公司决定关停Zeku。
On May 12th, a news came out from OPPO, a Chinese mobile brand, announcing closure of their chip design company, Zeku, and the dissolution of the chip project department, which had received an investment of 50 billion yuan. Over 3,000 masters and PhDs from top universities at home and abroad were all laid off. OPPO indeed holds a relatively large market share both domestically and internationally, thus having strong influence in the industry. Over the years among Chinese mobile phone brands, OPPO has been developing chip in-house with significant investment and determination. However, the sudden decision to abandon its effort has caused a huge stir domestically. A quite common view from netizens is "I'm really surprised. Isn't it said that the design of the mobile phone SoC chip is almost complete? They say that there are still billions of budget left unspent, so why abandon it all at once?" OPPO's official explanation is that, in the face of uncertainty in the global mobile phone market, the company has decided to terminate the Zeku business after careful consideration. It is reported that OPPO's Zeku business, established in 2020, has developed two in-house chips. The first is the Silicon X, an image processing NPU chip launched at the end of 2021. The second is Silicon Y, a Bluetooth chip. Recently, there were rumors that the OPPO's 3nm SoC chip is successfully developed, was planned to be manufactured by TSMC and incorporated into the flagship models expected to be released between 2023 and 2024. However, those plans appear to have been halted for now. OPPO's semiconductor division, which primarily focuses on chip design, spends most of its funds on chip fabrication and employee salaries. With 3,000 employees, if the average annual salary is 1 million yuan, the total will be 3 billion yuan per year. Given its cash reserve of 50 billion yuan, OPPO could sustain this level of expenditure for many years. The cost of chip fabrication is 40 million yuan per run, and not very revision requires this much expenditure. If OPPO were to abandon its chip business due to financial constraints, it would seem unnecessary. They could easily apply for national chip subsidies. Thus, the claim that OPPO is abandoning its chip business due to financial reasons seems hard to believe. Thus, OPPO's sudden halt to Zeku's operations may be telling people that the chip Zeku was developing, even if they were produced, would be bad quality and unwanted. Combined with the current pessimistic outlook of the mobile phone market, OPPO may not want to continue investing. A netizen disclosed, "There are some things I can't say too much, but I can be sure that they have not actually achieved any major results. Despite burning a large amount of money and hiring over 3,000 employees, their results are not satisfactory." Another netizen said, "I just found out that all they have done in the past was just plagiarism and copying. There was no real innovation and development. They burned tens of billions for nothing, and now they see no future and don't have much money left, so they can only choose to stop." According to disclosures from inside the company, Zeku has essentially not accomplished anything, a fact that the management and possibly the investors are aware of. However, the narrative has already been set and they have to keep playing along. Over the past few years, OPPO's image has largely been elevated by various PR articles, with many pieces overly praising the company. This has clearly misled the public, burdening OPPO, a company with insufficient capabilities, with people's expectations for domestic semiconductor development. Looking at the data, OPPO's scale is completely mismatched with the hype surrounding its capability to develop domestic smartphone semiconductors. OPPO's global sale volume is 160 million mobile phones, and the approximate revenue is between 200 and 250 billion yuan. Even with other businesses, it's hard to exceed 300 billion. The R&D cost is calculated at about 17 billion per year based on the 50 billion over 3 years boasted in the press release. But this is far from the comparable to global tech giants such as Apple, Samsung, and Huawei. The R&D budget of Apple's chip design department reaches 100 billion yuan per year. At the same time, OPPO and R&D investment is not all used for chip design, but also includes mobile phone design, marketing, and other businesses. This leads the OPPO inadequate investment in chip R&D. Previously, a senior industry person expressed to the reporter of the 21st Century Business Herald that they are not optimistic about mobile phone manufacturers developing their own SoC chip. This is because it requires global market certification for different types of technology. US semiconductor company Qualcomm has accumulated experience in this area, but mobile phone manufacturers have to start from scratch. A complete SoC includes a modem, also known as a baseband chip, and an application processor, AP. Historically, Apple has been buying baseband chips from Qualcomm and integrating them into its own SoCs. Samsung also has its own SoC, called Exynos, but the SoC actually used in Samsung phones is still Qualcomm's chip. Even Qualcomm, a company that has been deeply cultivating ARM technology for so long and has world-class expertise, announced a few years ago that it would stop making ARM server chips. NVIDIA's Tegra, which had been on mobile phones, is now running on handheld devices. Why doesn't NVIDIA make mobile phone chips? It's evident that even the giants in the niche sector of semiconductors have their area of weakness. Simply producing a semiconductor does not mean it can be universally applied, profitable, or propel a company to success, as OPPO's press release might suggest. Not to mention that semiconductors are a manufacturing product. The profit margins from the semiconductor business, even when the US supplies China, are not excessively high. The semiconductor industry isn't considered an emerging industry in the US, and it even carries a whiff of being a sunset industry. This is especially so when compared to the real estate industry in Shenzhen, where construction costs can be around 5,000 or 6,000 yuan, but houses are easily sold for 50,000 to 60,000 yuan. In comparison, the US semiconductor industry seems overly modest. Therefore, for a company of OPPO's scale to decide on manufacturing smartphone SoC prematurely and to prematurely release PR news, it has already exceeded the norms of business decision-making. Looking at it today, aside from causing adverse effects on China's semiconductor industry, it had almost no other effect. Consumer electronics are not thriving globally right now, and even Qualcomm in the United States is not doing well. The domestic consumer electronics market in China is already saturated with exports overseas and profits being spread very thin. Huawei can continue to operate due to 5G operators using Huawei's equipment, along with receiving huge national subsidies and having other profitable sectors. Hikvision can survive because of profits from government procurement of surveillance equipment. What OPPO can boast about is only its mobile phone business facing a saturated competitive market without the support and guarantee of government procurement for profits. It's clear that if OPPO continues to engage in chip development, they might not be able to keep going. Currently, the sales of Android phones in China are experiencing a cliff-like decline, and this situation may continue into the future. Instead of ongoing investment, it is better to cut losses for survival, allowing OPPO to focus its existing funds on the mobile phone business to weather the market in the coming years. To support domestic chip manufacturing, China Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund, also known as the Big Fund, was established in China in 2014. With a target scale of 138.7 billion yuan, it mainly invests in key industries such as chip manufacturing. The Big Fund's daily activities involve investing in chip companies and providing subsidies. On February 13, 2050, the Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund invested 10 billion yuan in Unigroup's chip business. However, since November 2020, Unigroup has been constantly defaulting on its debts. Last July, the chairman of Unigroup was taken away for investigation. In recent years, there have been numerous reports of unfinished projects or bankruptcies in the semiconductor field, causing significant losses in many places. According to 21st Century Business Herald, by the end of April 2022, at least 80% of chip projects nationwide had encountered problems. An industry insider revealed during the early years of the big fund's investment, some semiconductor factories initially only spent over 200 million yuan, but they claimed the construction cost was nearly 2 billion yuan. There was not much transparency. As of the first half of 2022, the number of newly registered chip companies in China reached 172 per day. However, the problem is, despite so many companies joining the chip industry, has China's chip industry really developed? The answer is no. As of the first half of 2022, the number of disregistered chip companies in China reached 5,700, with an average of 16 chip companies going bankrupt every day. Over the past year, China's chip production capacity has actually decreased by 11.6%, which means a daily reduction of 100 million chips. Why is that? There are many reasons. The chip industry is rife with fraudulent practices. Most of the deregistered companies were just there for subsidies, and there's also corruption within the big fund. In November 2021, Gao Songtao, Deputy General Manager of Huaxing Investment, which participated in the big fund investment, was investigated. After Lu Jun, president of Huaxing Investment, was investigated in 2022, Zhao Weiguo of Unigroup, Minister Xiao Yaqing of the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, and Ding Wenwu, General Manager of the fund, were successively taken away for investigation. There are also some companies that are generally reaching and developing chips, have decent technical capabilities, and have accumulated many engineering talents. However, due to lack of adequate management personnel to successfully manage these engineers, the final result is still bankruptcy. In addition, starting from the third quarter of last year, the Chinese consumer market began to experience a structural imbalance between supply and demand. Coupled with global semiconductor industry facing inventory adjustments in the second half of the year and a period of market downturn, the demand for new products generally declined. Many Chinese chip companies went bankrupt because they could not provide products that meet market demands.